funds do that successfully, but it gives their people a tremendous leg up if they do create that in-house. So everyone has access to the same data. Information's much more transparent.
Right.
Also, since 2003, to date, you have the platforms. When I say the platforms, I talk about the multi-managers like Citadel and Point72 and Millennium and Balyasny. These guys exploded. They got so much bigger. You have all these PMs now sitting at these shops. And so many more eyes and ears at conferences, and behind a shorting model that can suss out underperformance. So if management says something squishy at a conference, it used to have 3 to 6 months for that underperformance to get priced fully.
Right.
Now that happens in 2 days.
Amazing.
So the window of efficiency, for performance has gotten much smaller. And LPs, as I said, have gotten much more sophisticated. And so with all of this, returns have come down because the industry is so much more crowded. Oh, and liquidity, right? Mutual funds and retail have shrunk. So there's far less liquidity now than there was back then. Fewer companies are going public, right? With increased regulation and scrutiny, CEOs are like, I don't want to go public. If I'm a tech company, I can just go to a big tech private equity firm and get funded that way. I don't have to subject myself to this. So for all of those reasons, it's become far more difficult to generate alpha.
Coming up, we continue our conversation with Alana Weinstein of the IDW Group, discussing why talent is so valuable.
You're listening to Masters in Business with Barry Ritholtz on Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Along the goal line, Martin scores and takes it home.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, face off.
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Michael Bloomberg, a Democratic presidential candidate, is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, parent of Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update. Now the news.
Arguing the impeachment case is a charade. The president's legal defense team is calling for swift rejection of the two articles of impeachment against the president. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer
to rush this thing through so quickly because he's afraid of what the American people might hear. There's a second reason. He's afraid that more damning evidence will come to light.
The impeachment trial begins in earnest tomorrow with the start of opening arguments. Democratic presidential contender who celebrated the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday and his legacy in South Carolina, Iowa, and around the nation. In Columbia, the field's major contenders linked arms with each other and with civil rights leaders in a crowd of thousands who marched to the South Carolina State House. Russian President Vladimir Putin has submitted to Parliament a package of constitutional amendments widely seen as an effort to secure his grip on power when his term ends in 2024. I'm Mike Moss.
I'm Barry Ritholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio. My extra special guest this week is Alana Weinstein. She runs a leading boutique for hedge fund, private equity, and family offices, recruiting the top talent in the industry. Our last segment, you discussed all sorts of really fascinating things I wanted to circle back to, in particular about the shifts in where institutions are putting their money and the fee structure. So let's start with the fees. One of the things I've seen that's been kind of interesting, and you explained earlier why institutions hate to pay alpha prices for beta, is the rise of a so-called fulcrum fee, where there's a very modest fee on assets, and the actual profit sharing fee, the typical 2 and 20 part of the fee, is not on what the S&P provides, but only on the excess performance. So it might be, instead of 2 and 20, 25 basis points and 30. What do you think of those sorts of fee structures? Do they have any longevity?
I think that we need to move to a model which is closer for if funds are going to charge what they charge, which is sizable. We need to move to a structure where LPs are paying for alpha. That's the bottom line. So whether it is they lower their fees or they just charge on alpha, that has to be where the industry is going. Or here's another thought. There are hedge funds which really, and this is true of a lot of the single manager long short equity funds, whether Tiger Cubs or related, some of these guys are really best at generating long alpha. They're really not that good on the short side. And if you look closely at the composition of their return, the shorts are actually volatility enhancers and alpha detractors. But they have to short because they're hedge funds, right? They can't charge 2 and 20 with just having a long only model.
And it's very hard to short when the market has, at least for the first half of this bull market, just rampaged straight up from 09 to 20, let's call it 15.
It's just, it's not not what they do best. There are, and they're also not set up to do it as well as the multi-managers that have much broader and deeper resources to help these guys be successful with respect to managing factor volatility and coming up with single name alpha shorts. So the best thing these more concentrated directional managers could do would be to say, okay, I'm best at generating long alpha. Therefore, let me set myself up in a way where they create an alternative long only fund where, and I think this is how a lot of these funds are going to go. You recently saw in the last year, Soroban really converted most of their assets to long only. And so the idea being, if I'm best at generating long alpha and I'm not that good at managing short-term volatility and coming up with alpha shorts, alpha generating single name shorts, but I need 2 to 3 or 4 years to let my thesis play out, then you know what? Maybe you just charge on alpha at the end of that time period. And so you have duration. And it's a totally different structure, but that's the point. You need to figure out what you're best at. It's so hard now to generate consistent alpha, and you need to figure out what structure is going to enable you to be competitive, and that may mean locking up capital for a longer period of time and charging less or just charging on alpha. But the idea that one size fits all when it comes to fees, no matter what your investing style is or how much beta you employ, is ridiculous. The guy charging it's the same fee structure for the guy running net 30 and running net 60. So I think there should be a hurdle with respect to how much is alpha and how much is beta.
You mentioned how many hedge fund closings there were in 2018. Typically, when a fund shuts down, does that money leave the space or does it just rotate to a different hedge fund, at least from an institutional perspective?
Well, given the trend line I shared with you earlier, which is we have now 60 billion of net outflows to the industry, that's net outflows. I think money is actually leaving the industry. That's where I think things are going. And so it could go to another fund, but the problem is there are so few good options. It doesn't want to go to another fund that has had the same meh or crappy performance. Right. A lot of the better funds, candidly, are closed. Right. That's the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why you see when guys splinter off from the funds that are closed and LPs are salivating for access to, they're the ones that scale overnight, and there are only so many of those. So that's why I think we're seeing the aggregate amount of net outflows and also the trend line. The thing on the trend line is the only other year in hedge fund history where we had 4 consecutive quarters of net outflows was 2008 to 2009.
Really? That's amazing.
We are probably, Q1 2019 was the only other time in hedge fund history we saw 4 consecutive quarters. And Q1 2019 this year, we had 15 billion of net outflows. We're now at 60 something. So I guarantee you we're now in our 6th quarter of net outflows. That is first time ever in hedge fund history.
Wow, that's amazing. So I don't want to call it the flavor of the month. It's a little too glib, but it's clear that private equity is the shiny new thing. Lots of money seems to be flowing in that direction. Is that who is the beneficiary of the outflows from hedge funds? As if you're an institution and you know your expected returns for equity is going to be 5 or 6%, and bonds are yielding less than 2%, and alternatives are promising 8, 9, 10%, do these outflows end up going to private equity?
They do, but, interestingly, and it's true that in the last 4 or 5 years, while hedge funds have suffered because their returns have come down, and for most of them, fees have had to readjust or in the process of readjusting, private equity was had the hot hand because rates were low and it was easier to buy companies. I think that. I think what we're seeing now is the merging of public and private. You see private equity firms trying to get into the public markets. You see hedge funds developing their private investing expertise. And so I think each one is trying to capitalize upon the other's revenue stream.
That's quite interesting. One of the things I read about you that I thought was pretty amusing, there was a gala that you helped put together earlier this year, and one of the co-producers of the gala was Stevie Cohen of now Point72, and he discussed what a challenge it's been for so many hedge funds, and basically said no one's winning the hedge fund game. There's this recruitment process where people go from one fund to another, and the only one who wins is you. He kind of dragged you a little bit.
No. It was, just to be clear, the gala was in honor of me. I was being honored. So, so
it was a little bit of roasting taking place.
It was a little bit of roasting. I think it was, he was introducing me. I was the honoree. So I think it was meant to
So it was good nature and okay.
But it's also
because when you read it, it's like, wow, Stevie Cohen's really dragging the line. But it's nothing like that.
I don't think it was seen that way. I think his point was, there is a war for talent because there's so little of it, right? I said it myself, there are only so many people I put in that first bubble of best in class in each asset class. That is true. And you see it with the returns of funds. There's only so many funds that are performing and only so many people within those funds.
P&Ls don't lie.
P&L doesn't lie. That's what I love about this industry. It's real time. It's mark to market. You know where you stand at all times. So that is true. There's an intense competition to attract the best. It is also true we tend to be in the mix of it. But the other thing that's true is as much as there are only so many good people, there are only so many places those people are going to be attracted to. And Steve runs a great shop. Point72 is one of them. Other places like Citadel, Millennium, Davidson Kempner, Golden Tree, there are places that have built something unique and are going to be able to do something special to attract talent and make them more successful because of the very fact that they are at those funds or on those platforms. And that's what creates a symbiotic relationship between talent and the best places that exist in myself. At the end of the day, IDW, has been very deliberate about who we choose to work with. As good as I'd like to think we are, at the end of the day, the people we are dealing with on the talent side, they are very sophisticated. They are very smart. And they're not going to go someplace that isn't a marked step up from where they are today with a pathway that is unique.
We have been speaking with Alana Weinstein. She is the founder and CEO of the IDW Group, a leading boutique for hedge funds, family offices, and private equity, searching out top talent. If you enjoy this conversation, well, be sure and come back for the podcast extras, where we keep the tape rolling and continue discussing all things hedge fund and alternatives. You can find that at iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever your finer podcasts are sold. We love your comments, feedback, and suggestions. Write to us at MIBpodcast@Bloomberg.net. Give us a review on Apple iTunes. Check out my weekly column on Bloomberg.com. Follow me on Twitter at Ritholtz. I'm Barry Ritholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio.
Rich is just a... Boredom. Fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Fly with Cathay Pacific and arrive ready to make the most of the bustling markets of Hanoi. Book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now a global news update.
Early arguments, quick acquittal. I'm Mike Moss. The impeachment trial of President Trump moves to opening arguments tomorrow, but the fighting is already underway. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer saying of the president,
who is a liar, who appeals to bigotry, who appeals to divisiveness, who believes in helping the rich and powerful over the everyday people.
White House correspondent Bob Costantini reports the president's defense team has sent legal briefs to the Senate.
There are sections seemingly right from the president's own arguments about it being, quote, entirely appropriate to ask about possible Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election, as well as it being, quote, appropriate for President Trump to ask President Zelensky about the Biden-Burisma affair. Emphasis on the word ask versus aid to Ukraine being contingent on those investigations.
President's legal team is calling for a quick acquittal of the president in the Senate trial. In Richmond, Virginia, a rally at the state capitol in defense of gun rights. Correspondent Sarah Seidner is there.
We're standing on the other side of a fence where the Capitol is. Those who were going into the Capitol had to go in without their weapons, which greatly angered a lot of folks since this was a Second Amendment rights rally. And those who were out here, some of them were armed to the teeth to try to show off the fact that they can have their guns, that it is their right.
Their protest has been peaceful. Hundreds of Central American migrants have begun wading across a river into southern Mexico in what appears to be a new test of President Trump's Central American strategy to keep them away from the U.S. border. The migrants moved off the border bridge and to the river after Mexican officials told them they would not be granted passage through the country. The migrants demand that they be allowed to move freely through Mexico to reach the United States. On Wall Street, the markets are closed for MLK Day. I'm Mike Moss.
Great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or if you sign up for a plan that you're just not happy with, you still have a choice. It's called MediShare. It's the affordable alternative to health insurance, and it's worked beautifully for 25 years. They have more than 400,000 members now around the country. MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry, and over the years, members have shared over $3 billion of each other's medical bills, so they could help share your needs too. And best of all, you could save a lot of money with MediShare. The typical savings for a family is about $500 a month. Your savings could be more or less, but think about what you could do with that extra money every month. You're not stuck with a high-cost health plan. You can join MediShare anytime, so call them today and check it out. Here's the number to find out more, and there's no pressure. They are super easy to talk to. Call 844-91-BIBLE. That's 844-91-BIBLE. 844-91-BIBLE.
Thoroughbred racehorses are continuing to die at Southern California's famed Santa Anita Park. Correspondent Jim Roop reports the death toll is now 42 over a 13-month period.
3 more deaths in 3 days. Friday, a 6-year-old gelding was euthanized after fracturing an ankle in the 7th race. Saturday, a 4-year-old was pulled up, also with a fractured ankle, and then put down. And on Sunday, another 4-year-old died while training. Details of that death are unclear. Calls continue for the California Racing Board to shut Santa Anita down from PETA and other activist groups. An investigation by LADA Jackie Lacey last month concluded, however, no criminal wrongdoing.
Police are awaiting autopsy results as they try to unravel why a boy allegedly shot and killed 4 people, including 3 children, inside a suburban Utah home. Grantsville police say the victims' identities will be released following the completion of the autopsies sometime later today. I'm Mike.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. The International Monetary Fund is predicting the global economy will strengthen in 2020. However, growth is expected to be at a slightly weaker pace than previously anticipated. Gita Gopinath is the chief economist at the International Monetary Fund. She told us one reason for better growth this year, more than in 2020, is the Phase 1 trade deal between the U.S. and China.
We welcome this news, but we also press for more on this front. I mean, there has to be a more comprehensive deal. It has to be durable and long-lasting. Now, if these tensions return, that again will then undo all of the improvements in policy uncertainty that we've seen recently.
The IMF is forecasting global growth will accelerate this year to 3.3%. That would be up from 2.9% in 2019. Boeing is close to securing a $10 billion loan. It would boost the plane maker's finances in the midst of the 737 MAX jetliner crisis. The financing could still be increased if demand from investors exceeds the target size. We are told commitments are due by the end of this week. The embattled steel giant ThyssenKrupp has narrowed the list of bidders for its elevator unit. We are told the private equity firm Hill House Capital and the Brazilian-American investment firm 3G Capital are no longer in the running. 3 groups of private equity bidders do remain in the process. This unit is expected to fetch more than $17 billion. French President Emmanuel Macron and President Trump of the U.S. agreed to a truce in their dispute over digital taxes. In a tweet, Macron said, "We will work together on a good agreement to avoid tariff escalation." American markets are closed in observance of the MLK Day. Crude oil moved higher following reports of supply disruptions in both Libya and Iraq. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week from Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm Jason Kelly.
And I'm Carol Massar. Welcome to the weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Another very busy week on the corporate front, and certainly when it came to news out of Washington, Jason.
Absolutely. We had trade, we had impeachment, we had more details about how you might need to hire mercenaries to smuggle yourself out in a box if you don't think you're going to get a fair trial in Japan.
Got to say, that's one of my favorite stories. We really get into the details of how Carlos Ghosn, his great escape from Tokyo, and we also get into, because I feel like this story has gotten hidden, about the legal implications and the legal issues still facing Mr. Ghosn.
Plus, you mentioned trade and impeachment and politics. We caught up with both Blackstone's Steve Schwartzman. He was in the room when the trade deal was signed, and you caught up with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy about the state of the state and the state of politics.
We did indeed. Plus, Apollo's greed. It is this week's cover story. It's a story that really hasn't been told, but our team, they got the interview with Leon Black.
First, to the big story of the week.
So China has made substantial and enforceable commitments regarding the protection of American ideas, trade secrets, patents, and trademarks. China has also pledged firm action to confront pirated and counterfeit goods, which is a big problem for many of the people in the room.
And that was President Trump after the U.S. and China signed that phase one of the trade deal. A lot of pomp and circumstance down in Washington, a full room, the president name-checking a lot of his friends there in the audience.
Let's get more on the economics of the trade deal. Let's bring in Sean Donnan in D.C. with his story on how now comes the hard part. After the handshake, we've seen the photo ops. This is the tough part. Why is it so hard, Sean?
President Trump is not the first president to make a deal with China. In fact, he referenced that when he was signing this, saying that he was righting the wrongs of the past, righting the issues that his predecessors had not addressed in terms of dealing with China. President Clinton, of course, brought China into the WTO. George W. Bush had his own dealings with China. So did Barack Obama, who not only had a constant economic dialogue with China, but also was looking for his own trade deals to try and deal with the threat of China that was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The common thread through all of this has been that the consensus here in Washington certainly is that China just hasn't lived up to its promises in these past deals. And that's where the China moment is for Donald Trump right now. He's got his deal. Now will China live up to it?
And so what does enforcement look like, Sean? What does it look like on the ground, and where does the rubber meet the road here?
Right. So the thing that the administration says is very different about this deal, and the reason they think they can get China to live up to its commitments, is this enforcement mechanism that's in there. Essentially, it sets the stage for if the U.S. has any complaints or any inkling that China isn't living up to the deal. There's this kind of 90-day process of consultations at the end of which you can whack the Chinese with tariffs if you choose to. That's good. That seems to be a mechanism that could work. But it's also an unwinding of the kind of global system that was set up in the 1990s, and that's essentially the World Trade Organization, which was set up to be a neutral arbiter in disputes like this. And the Trump administration is just going around that. And that has big consequences for everyone else in the world, because it means that that's going to reduce the credibility of the WTO and its ability to keep the peace in global trade at a time when the Trump administration is already undermining it by failing to appoint or blocking the appointment of new judges. So there's big consequences for not just the U.S. and China in terms of trying to get China to live up to this deal, but also for the rest of the world and global trade. You know, I mean, the whole idea of the WTO is to avoid trade wars. Donald Trump's gone down the path of trade wars, and now he's promising more trade wars to try and enforce deals, essentially, if that's right. if that becomes the issue.
And that's Sean Donnan, senior trade reporter for Bloomberg. Let's turn now from trade to the 2020 presidential campaign.
Here's Josh Green with a story on the terminal and online on how Bernie Sanders is poised for an upset. You know, Josh, it does seem Bernie is out there to win this one. What's different about the 2016 presidential race and his run to get the nomination versus today? And can he win?
Bernie Sanders, who was all but forgotten about 3 months after he suffered a heart attack, is in first place in the race in Iowa. And yet I still think there's a sense in Washington and on Wall Street that there's no way Bernie can possibly win. So what I do in the magazine this week is do a deep dive into Sanders and look at what is different about his race this time around. The main thing is he's running to win. Last time around when he was running against Hillary Clinton, he was in the race, I think, more to make a point. But the key takeaway here is that Bernie is playing to win, and he is actually in position to be able to do so.
And Josh, tell us about that Warren v. Sanders battle that is shaping up.
While I was out there in Iowa, Politico reported that Bernie's campaign had been giving its surrogates talking points, telling them to tell voters to attack Elizabeth Warren as an elitist and somebody who couldn't unify the party and beat Donald Trump. That is a harsh attack attack from someone supposed to be an ally. The story went public, and it looks like in retaliation, Warren's camp leaked that in a private meeting between the two of them at the beginning of this cycle, Sanders had said to Warren, I don't think a woman can win this race. Now, none of this was ever spoken of. It only came to light a few days before this past debate, and it set off a firestorm, as you might expect, with the political press out there putting pressure on Warren to say, is this true? Well, after about a day of being quiet, Warren put out a public statement. It was like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Josh, thanks so much. That's Bloomberg's Josh Green. He's been following the comings and goings of the presidential hopefuls, certainly the Democrats. And I think this one's he focused, remember last year, Josh focused on Elizabeth Warren, that great story. But it's interesting to see how there's a lot of attention, and for good reason, being paid to Bernie Sanders.
Well, and the clash between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren seems to be one of the most compelling storylines out there right now.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, more details emerging on the daring escape of former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn. It isn't easy, Jason, but if you've got the means, you can probably get out of a situation.
Get out of just about anywhere if you got the right mercenaries. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Millennials are getting behind the wheel. They're just doing it later in life than previous generations. Analysts had the auto industry worried, suggesting that those born in the 80s and early 90s weren't excited about driving.
Enthusiasm alone doesn't drive car sales. I mean, I'm not enthusiastic about fashion, but I have to leave the house and I can't do it naked, so I have to buy clothing.
Joe Weisenfelder of Cars.com isn't surprised about new data from Benchmark showing millennials are now getting their driver's licenses in numbers equal to or even higher than car-loving baby boomers.
Millennials have to get places. They have to start jobs, leave the nest, start their own families, and finally that seems to be what's happening. So it really, more than anything, looks like it was just a delay.
And he says that could be very helpful to automakers who've been seeing soft demand. At the end of last year, the industry offered the biggest promotions and incentives ever to get drivers into dealerships. Elisa Parenti, Bloomberg Radio.
Eluded by boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Mix it up, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class, skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This ain't just lunch. It's the KFC fill-up lunch for $1.99. It's mighty fine. Tingles your spine, so jump in line while there's still time. 1 mini fillet burger, 2 hot wings and fries, all for a fist-pumping $1.99. What the... Fill up on the fill-up lunch for only 1 more week at KFC. Every day until 26th of January until 3 p.m. at participating restaurants, subject to availability.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check.
70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
You know, I feel like this Carlos Ghosn story, Carol, every time we think, wow, that's the most interesting thing I've heard, or what a twist,
No, it's
or
not.
what a great detail.
No, it's not.
It is not. And thanks to some stellar reporting from Matt Campbell, there's just a constant stream of new information. He led a team that put together a really nice piece. It's in this week's magazine on the Bloomberg Terminal and on Bloomberg.com today. Matt joins us on the phone from Beirut. He's still on the ground on the Ghosn story, and Joel Weber, the editor of Bloomberg Business Week, is here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Matt, I got to ask you, especially since you have the perspective of really being in this story, what's the thing in this story about the escape itself that you really just zero in on as Carol Masser would say, whoa moment?
Well, I think there's quite a lot to say wow about in this story. I'm interested in all the scenarios that were examined to get Carlos Ghosn out of Japan. There's some discussion of that in this piece which was published. Notably, there was some discussion of actually buying a cargo ship and sneaking him onto it, though that was rejected as too complicated. And in the end, they did get to this very dramatic private jet escape that we now know a little bit more about.
Which, this to me, and the wonder of this story, it's like all these little dribs and drabs that have come out over the last week and change, actually ever since the story really broke at the beginning of the year, we've all been captivated by it. Part of what made this be, I think, this epic part 3 of this story that Matt's been kind of shepherding is this inside the plan of how to get somebody out of the country, how to extract someone. And it's a very movie-esque, but the reason it can be movie-esque is because of like real reporting. And Matt, can you kind of walk us through how the story opens?
Well, so the story opens with a security contractor in Asia, someone who does this kind of thing, escorting VIPs, protecting cargoes. He gets a call a few months ago from someone he knows who is looking to hire for a job in Japan, looking particularly to escort someone out of the country and looking for operatives with East Asian faces particularly. And the security contractor was sort of non-committal, and no one really came to mind, and he never really thought of it again until, of course, he saw the news along with the rest of the world on New Year's Eve.
And that's when you connect the dots. And one of the things that I've been kind of captivated by in this is, like, obviously Carlos Ghosn had the means to actually, fund something like this. But what would it go down for? Like, what does the service actually cost someone?
Well, that's a very good question. One estimate that I've heard was $15 million, which when I first heard it sounded insanely high. But the person who was providing that estimate to me then took me through the math. And one thing that you have to add at every point in that calculation is, for lack of a better term, a risk premium. This is flagrantly illegal. Everyone involved could be exposed to arrest, obviously. And people need to be compensated for that kind of risk-taking.
Yeah, and when you say everyone, we've actually got some names. You've got a Michael Taylor, and then you've got a buddy of Michael Taylor. I mean, we've got names on the individuals who are believed to have helped Carlos Ghosn get out of Japan.
That's right. So far, just 2 names. Michael Taylor being the leader of the group, a very interesting guy with a somewhat checkered history. Former Green Beret, very experienced special forces operator, ended up in the private security business, but actually ended up going to jail in the mid-2010s over federal charges to do with allegedly bribing his way to a contract in Afghanistan. So really someone who's operated in some gray areas and pulled off this amazing coup on behalf of Carlos Ghosn.
So, Matt, I mentioned earlier that this is sort of the part 3 in the magazine of a Carlos Ghosn trilogy that you've basically been steering from the moment that Japanese officials basically arrested him on a tarmac a year and change ago. So what have you learned, and what is this escape? Put it all in context. What does it mean for people to know?
Well, I think the big thing here is that he has now turned the tables. Over the last year, he seemed pretty helpless. This real titan of business, this very respected corporate figure, was suddenly just completely at the mercy of the Japanese justice system, and none of the advantages he had, money, connections, access to the media, whatever, it didn't seem to count for anything. And it was really a tale of a guy kind of alone, kind of abandoned, and facing a pretty grim fate. That's now completely changed. He has gotten out of the threat of being sent to a Japanese prison, though he's certainly not out of the woods yet, as we discussed in the story.
Right, and I want to end on that note, Matt, if we can. I mean, not out of the woods because he's essentially, without overstating it, sort of a different type of prisoner at this point. By some accounts, he's not free to go in any sense, right?
Well, he is, Jason, certainly free to live here in Lebanon.
Right.
At least as far as we know, there is a judicial proceeding that is going to run its course here, but it's very unlikely he will be extradited. So he's fine to be here for now. He certainly can't travel anywhere except perhaps to France, where he's also a citizen. And the other thing is, his reputation has not yet been rehabilitated, and I think if he entertains thoughts of a comeback, which he very well might, there's a long way to go to that.
And I'm just going to say, as you so rightfully include in your story, it's another case of the winner-take-all in the game of 21st century capitalism. If you got money and means, you can get yourself out, Matt, just quickly.
Indeed, yeah. Well, it turns out that we were very surprised in Japan that he couldn't beat the system, but he was able to exit the system, which is not something that most criminal defendants do.
It's the other option. Go way outside the box.
If you can't beat the system, just change the system altogether.
Go in a box to go way outside the box.
Exactly. You got to get in the box.
That's Bloomberg reporter Matthew Campbell and Businessweek editor-in-chief Joel Weber. Jason, this story just gets more and more interesting, and I've got to take my hat off to our team here at Bloomberg, who has done great investigative journalism and is really getting to the details, the names of the individuals behind that great escape of Carlos Ghosn and how it all came down.
Well, absolutely. And as you continue to listen to Bloomberg Business Week, you're going to hear the next part of the story to focus on the legal implications for Carlos Ghosn. The short version, it ain't over.
No, not even close. This is Bloomberg.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three. It's up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
Human-to-human transmission, and that an animal source seems to be likely the primary source of the virus. The many unknowns are sparking concern, though, on Chinese social media in particular. Some there questioning whether or not health officials are truthfully reporting all of the cases.
Thousands of gun rights activists from around the country are rallying peacefully at the Virginia Capitol, protesting plans by the state's Democratic leadership to pass gun control legislation that have become a key flashpoint in the national debate over gun violence. French President Emmanuel Macron says he had a good call with President Trump today, and both sides will work to avoid new tariffs. They discussed the French digital tax that threatens U.S. tech firms. I'm Mike Moss.
And I'm Mark Mills in the Bloomberg Radio Newsroom. The International Monetary Fund predicted the world economy will strengthen in 2020, though at a slightly slower pace than previously estimated, citing threats related to trade and tensions in the Middle East. The IMF said global growth will accelerate to a 3.3% rate this year from an estimated 2.9% in 2019. That marks the first pickup in 3 years. Both figures, though, are down compared with forecasts in October. Markets are closed today for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, but traders still have plenty to look out for in the week ahead, as we hear from Bloomberg's Karen Moscow.
The World Economic Forum, the annual gathering of global leaders in politics, business, and culture, returns to Davos tomorrow. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney is among those scheduled to speak. That's the same day we'll be watching for earnings from Netflix and UBS. A report Wednesday could show an uptick in sales of previously owned U.S. homes in December, and the ECB holds its first policy meeting of 2020 on Thursday. Karen Moscow, Bloomberg Radio.
Checking the financial markets, with the U.S. markets closed, volume was light in the overseas markets. In London, the FTSE 100 closed down 0.3%. The DAX in Germany was up almost 0.2%. In Asia, Japan's Nikkei finished up almost 0.2%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong dropped 0.9% in Monday trading. Apple CEO Tim Cook said he's hopeful and optimistic the Intergovernmental Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development will strike a deal on corporation tax as his company battles with the European Union over a tax bill. Speaking at an event in Dublin on Monday, Cook said the debate on taxing complex multinational companies needs to take place at a global level. Moody's lowered Hong Kong's rating as a long-term issuer of debt by 1 notch on Monday. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Mark Mills. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
It is now approximately 3 weeks since Carlos Ghosn, the ousted head of Nissan and Renault, escaped from Japan. And while we're all obsessed, Jason, easily with the Hollywood-like feel of this story, real story, there are still something we can't forget, and that's the legal side of this story. A lot of questions still.
Absolutely. And we've talked a lot about, as you say, the escape, the dramatic, sort of in the box, literally, like getting to Lebanon. But what happens from here from a legal perspective? That's what we really want to dig into now. Greg Farrell is here with us. He has unpacked this in a way that few have and is here to provide some historical perspective. As you look at this, what are the key legal issues here?
The case against Ghosn is not like a lot of cases brought against CEOs in the United States, where it's a clear case of either insider trading or accounting fraud in order to goose up earnings so that you can get your bonus, the Enron stuff that we all remember from 15, 20 years ago. The case against Ghosn is unusual insofar as it's he's been accused of helping himself to more money than he deserved, or somehow finagling a way to get the board to approve, or unbeknownst to the board, and even bigger pay packages than he was entitled to, which is uncommon. It's seen rarely here. Basically, to my mind, it brought back the case against former Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski and his CFO, brought not by the federal government, but by the Manhattan District Attorney, Bob Morgenthau, back in the 04-05 era. And that was kind of a messy case. It was not clear. They went after him on books and records issues, etc., but it did not have that clear resonance that an accounting fraud, a securities fraud case has. Tyco shareholders were not really burned by this. Yes, Kozlowski helped himself to more money than the board had approved, but unlike Enron, unlike HealthSouth, unlike some of these other WorldCom, Tyco was a real profitable company and his shareholders were doing well. So this falls into that category. Ghosn was accused of helping himself to more than he deserved and basically parlaying his position to enrich himself. Another thing that was missing from, Morgenthau's case against Tyco, but clearly present here, is the plan, and Carlos Ghosn referred to this in his press conference last week, to basically fold Nissan into a wider global automotive group that would basically, remove the essential Japanese element from it or make it less of a Japanese champion brand that it had been. And, I think he's actually got a point there that this is something that didn't go over well.
But it was in the works.
It was in the works. It was in the works. It's more than a coincidence, I think, that this very aggressive regulatory legal action and prosecution of Ghosn took place at a time when Nissan was, in fact, drifting towards becoming an international brand and less of a Japanese brand.
What's interesting, I want to go back to what you said of, perhaps Carlos Ghosn helping himself to more than he was allowed. Is that a simple legal case to figure out? In other words, do you just go back to the employment contracts and here's what they say, you weren't allowed to have this house, or so on and so forth? Or when it comes to this kind of things, because I could certainly see with a board that's really happy with its CEO, and Carlos Ghosn was lauded as this incredible auto executive in the industry and really globally as an executive. And I do wonder whether it's like, oh yeah, we like him, yeah, he can have that, or he can do this. Like, how do you go about legally proving it? What's required? Is there a lot of wiggle room?
Carol, you've made a very good point here, and that is he was a superstar CEO by the time this all unfolded a little more than a year ago. And as he pointed out in his press conference last week, somewhere near 20 books have been written, or case studies in business schools about his phenomenal success.
We would interview him saying, what a great executive.
Yes,
everyone
absolutely.
respects him.
But this is at the far end of a 20-year reign. Certainly, when you have that much success over a period of time, there are certain realities that happen. We've seen it here in the U.S. with very powerful, CEOs who develop there's a hero worship. And after a while, technically, all boards of directors are independent, but over a particular 20-year period where new board members come on, et cetera, after a while, the board becomes, if not a wholly owned subsidiary, far less of an independent watchdog than what shareholder activists would like us to have. There becomes a very comfortable relationship between the board and the CEO because everybody's doing well. Why rock the boat? And in that gray area is whether or not Ghosn is entitled to this. The board. So there'd be different claims if this ever went to trial that the board was not aware that he was paying himself that. Ghosn could say, no, I told them this, or they knew that, or we had a discussion at the end of the last board meeting where I said, I'd be interested in this.
Right, the money went through and somebody okayed it,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It was a transaction.
And there are lawyers for every board meeting and board minutes, et cetera. So these are not like secret meetings that happen and people forget. So, that is a very gray area.
And that's Greg Farrell, one of the legal eagles here at Bloomberg. And what I loved about his conversation was he put it in context, historical context. He's followed everything from Enron to Tyco, and those connections that he made to the Dennis Kozlowski story, I thought were fascinating.
I also think it was funny that in starting to talk with him, he's like, wait, I had to remember that there were charges. What were the charges specifically against Carlos Ghosn? So he gets into the particulars. So obviously a story that continues to evolve. It isn't over, as you said.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, a profile of Leon Black, founder of Apollo Global Management, one of the most influential voices and names on Wall Street.
And powerful, and maybe a little bit scary. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
This is your boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class, skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Makes it run. Skip. Makes it run. Makes it.
Hello, I'm your captain for today's Virgin Atlantic flight. Please drop everything and pay close attention to the following announcement. The sail is now on. Our crew are ready to take your bags and stresses away. The cocktails are ready to serve, the movies are loaded, and we're all set for takeoff to the Caribbean. So, take your seat in our award-winning economy class. We're ready to go when you are.
The Virgin Atlantic sail. Fly amazing for less. For more details, visit virginatlantic.com.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
This app and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
News without analysis is like half a bridge.
Why is the debt to GDP ratio still so important?
Those things, once they're set in place, stay around for years.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio. A reminder, Michael Bloomberg, a Democratic presidential candidate, is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, parent of Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update. Now the news.
An important development in the growing health crisis involving a troublesome respiratory virus in China. Correspondent David Culver is there.
The World Health Organization says there is evidence of human-to-human transmission and that an animal source seems to be likely the primary source of the virus. The many unknowns are sparking concern, though, on Chinese social media in particular. Some there questioning whether or not health officials are truthfully reporting all of the cases.
Thousands of gun rights activists from around the country are rallying peacefully at the Virginia Capitol, protesting plans by the state's Democratic leadership to pass gun control legislation that have become a key flashpoint in the national debate over gun violence. French President Emmanuel Macron says he had a good call with President Trump today, and both sides will work to avoid new tariffs. They discussed the French digital tax that threatens U.S. tech firms. I'm Mike Moss.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
Even if you don't know Apollo Management, you probably know some of the company's targets, right, Jason? We're talking about Harrah's Casinos, Claire's Jewelry Stores, Linen and Things. This brings us to the cover story this week.
It does, and it's really an unbelievable story that's never been told. Leon Black, one of the key figures in the world of finance, in the world of philanthropy, and certainly in the world of private equity. Caleb Melby and Heather Perlberg wrote the story. Caleb's here with us in New York City. Leon Black, where to begin? Where did you begin?
Indeed. Yeah, Heather and I, it took us months to put this together. And we approached it in the summer being like, here's this guy. He was in the news at the time because of his affiliations with Jeffrey Epstein. And like, his name was in headlines everywhere, and it was suddenly of much broader interest to a much broader group of people. And we were like, do people know who he is? Like, what his story is? The fact that he's been at like all the key junctures in like American financial history for like half a century. So we went and, you know, we started talking to people all the way back to the 1970s about Leon, his story, how he came to be one of the most powerful and ruthless people in American finance.
And we do want to take that step back. I mean, who is he today? I mean, he is, when it comes to private equity and investors, I mean, big deal, but someone who's been very quiet.
Yes. Yeah, he is in private equity. There's some people who you can think of as kind of ambassadors for that line of work, right? Probably Steve Schwartzman, chief among them. Leon Black has not shouldered that responsibility to tell the industry's story or anything like that. He's very adverse to the press, and we learned about why when we talked to him. But yeah, Apollo Global Management now has $320 billion under management. That's a figure that's grown sixfold in the last decade. He wants to get it up to 600 in the decade after this one. And he's worth almost $10 billion now. He's chairman of the Museum of Modern Art.
Which in I feel like New York society culture, if you want to be the head of a cultural institution in the world, that's a big one. That's a coveted position.
Yeah, I've kind of been thinking about it as like the Iron Throne for Game of Thrones fans, for like the royal houses of Manhattan, for sure. And yeah, mostly he's done that, much less in the public eye than his contemporaries. And Apollo also has a reputation across the street, across the realm of finance for playing harder ball than some of his contemporaries as well.
And so let's talk about some of those junctures going back through history for Leon Black. And one of the most notable is his time at Drexel Burnham Lambert, at the side, however you want to characterize it, of Michael Milken. You know, a definitive time in American finance, as you say. Remind us why Drexel is so important.
Well, he learned under Michael Milken, and he also served as banker to some of the most important corporate raiders of the 1980s. He was banking for Henry Kravis. He was banking for Carl Icahn, who would become something of a mentor. They'd go on vacations together, play poker together. Of course, Drexel is one of the most famous, low points, you can probably say, in Wall Street financial history with the trial of Michael Milken, its bankruptcy, and everything else. But also, with Time Heals All Wounds, Michael Milken, Leon Black, a lot of these guys, they're now, that's all in the past, and they've risen to become kind of like lord and master of Wall Street today.
And the Drexel part of the story, I think, is really important because its success in essentially creating the junk bond, obviously, and the junk bond market is critical for what comes next and what comes next for Leon Black. But also, and you alluded to this, the dissolution of Drexel, the bankruptcy, makes Apollo possible.
Absolutely. So when Leon first strikes out on his own right around 1990, it's all with like Drexel survivors, essentially. And at the same time, there's this credit crunch in the economy, and all of the companies that had been bought or were sitting on piles of high yield debt were now in trouble. And a lot of that debt was issued by Drexel, sometimes by Leon himself. He knows which are the good companies, which are the bad companies, and now all of a sudden they're all struggling, and the game is no longer mergers, acquisitions, LBOs. It's about buying that distressed debt and using it to maneuver to take over these companies. And he's had a front row seat as that debt was being issued, and now he forms what's actually called Line Advisors at first, but then later becomes Apollo, to go in, working with backing from Credit Lyonnais, a French bank, to really start to rifle through these distressed companies. And Apollo's really big value add is that they're going for the ones that are so distressed that his competitors, your Kravises, your Icons, are not touching them. And he's going in there, and he and his team are willing to, go through the restructuring battles, go through the bankruptcy battles, to try to make a profit off these companies.
And I do wonder too, he's been at the right place at the right time and kind of understanding the marketplace. But I also do wonder, Caleb, that, he has kind of done a service in terms of going after some of those companies that maybe some of the other private equity firms weren't interested in.
Sure. Yeah. He would argue that they are the truest value investors in private equity, right? That the way they think about value is you find a distressed situation that you are uniquely capable of heading into and turning around, and that's going to lower your downside risk because you're buying it for so cheap, and hopefully also boosting your chances of return later on.
And one of the things that Apollo has notably done, and with full permission from their investors, is they have had the ability to invest all around a company in many ways, not just buying equity, not just doing sort of a plain vanilla leverage buyout, but they're buying credit. Often they find themselves at different times on different sides of a deal, right?
Absolutely. And that's true for Apollo itself. And it's true for Leon as a person too. So yeah, he worked with companies and executives while he was issuing the debt at Drexel, then at Apollo, buying into those companies, as you say, multiple different ways, through equity, through debt. And then he continues to run into the same people all throughout the next few decades. He's sometimes competing, as he would later do with Icon, for control of a company, or partnering with them.
So, okay, I think what's interesting about this story, there's so much, because you do go into family history and so on. What I also think is just novel is that you actually you guys sat down and talked with Leon Black. This is someone who doesn't give interviews. Tell us a little bit about the experience and what you got from him.
Yeah, so Heather and I got to go sit down with Leon at his office at 9 West 57th Street. Something that struck me, it's kind of a joke in financial journalism. Knockout views of Central Park is a phrase that gets dropped into a lot of stories. This was the most stunning view of Central Park I have ever seen. Like, the whole park splayed out like a bocce ball court right in front of you. Truly the most amazing views I've seen in a Wall Street office reporting here. But he was incredibly clever, funny, very obviously intelligent, and was very interested in trying to communicate to us that he felt his company was misunderstood.
That's the first line of your story.
Yes, yeah.
Which is exactly what you said, that the most feared man in the most aggressive realm of finance, he wants to know why he's been misunderstood.
Right. And there's a few things at play there. One, we deal with this idea of risk and who bears risk in any private equity deal and who bears risk in a Leon Black deal specifically. And he makes a very good point that, Claire's or Linens and things or whatever may be a distressed asset that appears risky. Of course, the way Apollo goes about it does not mean Apollo itself or Apollo's investors are bearing a lot of risk, right? You put a little equity in, you get a lot of debt, shift that risk to your creditors, and then, of course, to the target company itself. And we came with a lot of questions, but that was the thing that really animated him and really seemed to both excite and aggravate him in a way that I found surprising.
The notion of risk and the misunderstanding?
Yeah, the misunderstanding of him and his company. And yeah, as we said, a part of that is because he has not proactively told his story in a way that a lot of his contemporaries do. And when I was talking to other people around the company, they'll say, okay, Caesars Casinos, something like that. There's only one Apollo, and there's 24 creditors who who all hate how Apollo's going about their line of work there, right? So they feel like there's a definitional, like, numeric sort of imbalance in how their story gets told.
That's Caleb Melby. He and Heather Perlberg did this cover story, Jason, and what's wonderful about it is they spent a long time on it. There's so many details about the man, his background, his family, and really how he got to where he is today. And what's fascinating, too, is, and we talked about it with Caleb, is that they actually sat down with Leon Black, and this is not something that Mr. Black does often.
The insights that they got into him, into the firm, into the implications of the business, both there at Apollo and in the broader private equity world, totally fascinating. We should mention you can get all of our conversation with Caleb Melby. It takes you even deeper into the story. It's our Business Week Extra podcast this week, so download that wherever you get your podcast. And that wraps up the first hour of the weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week from Bloomberg Radio. I'm Jason Kelly.
And I'm Carol Masser. Plenty coming up in our next hour, including another deep dive into another company, Bumble. It's the second most popular dating app. We get into how it was created and really the individual behind it and the culture of the company.
Talk about a complicated story in many ways, and also another firm, sort of like Apollo, where the firm, the company, really reflects the personality of the founder. Also, on the news, we caught up with Blackstone Group CEO, co-founder, and chairman Steve Schwartzman. He was in the room when that trade deal was signed. He tells us what it may mean for his business. Plus,
we also got an idea of what trade means for one particular state. We're talking about the state of New Jersey. I caught up with Governor Phil Murphy. We talked about trade. We also talked about the millionaire's tax. He's on quite a mission to do that. We also talked about what he is doing to create jobs within his state. So a really deep conversation.
Plus, the rich find it's not that easy to own a greenhouse. Go figure. That's in our Pursuit section.
Who knew? This is Bloomberg.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You want to turn that tap off, don't you? That's because we all know that wasting isn't smart. And yet, as a nation, we waste electricity every day without knowing it because our energy system is outdated. Smart meters not only help us stop wasting energy at home, they'll also help build a more efficient energy system so we can reduce waste across the nation. From the Campaign for a Smarter Britain.
Consumer action required for personal savings.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
On the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now a global news update.
Legal defense revealed. Arguments start tomorrow. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump's lawyers have filed a legal brief with the Senate that calls the impeachment a charade and asks for a swift acquittal by the Senate. We get more from White House correspondent Caitlin Collins.
It's still a question of how long this trial is going to take, and the White House does not know, but they make the argument in here that they believe this is the president's first chance to really defend himself. They say that they did not have that chance in the House, though, of course, they were the ones who did not send witnesses over, did not turn over documents, of course, that House Democrats wanted to see and wanted people they wanted to hear from.
In an MLK Day event, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer made clear he wants the president convicted.
And what would Dr. King importune us to do everything in our power to kick that man out of the White House.
World health officials are growing more concerned about a troublesome virus spreading in China. And as correspondent David Culver reports, the virus is showing up elsewhere too.
Japan, South Korea, and Thailand have also identified cases of the virus, all of which they say are linked to Wuhan, China. The central Chinese city is believed to be the epicenter of this illness. It causes pneumonia, and it can be deadly. Chinese scientists say it is in the same family as the deadly severe acute respiratory syndrome known as SARS, but they advise it does not appear nearly as lethal.
A Munich court has convicted a German man of more than a dozen offenses of attempted murder for tricking women and girls into giving themselves electric shocks while he watched over the internet. Thousands of gun rights activists from around the country rallied peacefully at a Virginia Capitol today, protesting plans by the state's Democratic leadership to pass gun control legislation that's become a key flashpoint in the national debate over gun violence in the U.S. Wall Street is closed today. I'm Mike Moss.
Do you know that mortgage rates have plummeted to a 3-year low and are nearing historic lows? At the same time, home values have gone up roughly 50% in the last several years. However, they seem to be peaking now. Maybe it's time to put that equity to work by paying off high-rate credit cards, personal loans, or remodel your house. Hi, I'm Wesley Hoagland with Westland Financial. Let us put you in a position to do any of these things with no closing costs. That's right. Nothing's rolled into your loan, whether it's conventional, FHA, or VA, will pay your title, settlement, lender, and recording fees. Maybe you just want to lock in a lower rate or refinance out of paying mortgage insurance. All it takes is a 5-minute phone call to see how we can save you thousands of dollars a year. So call Westland at 888-455-3669. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of mankind. Call us at 888-455-3669. 888-455-3669. That's 888-455-3669.
NMLS number 3304. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
The International Monetary Fund is predicting modest economic growth worldwide, but as correspondent Jan Johnson reports, the forecast is not all rosy.
The IMF says low interest rates and reduced trade tensions should keep the global economy afloat. But the organization's managing director says the reality is that growth remains sluggish, mostly because of trade battles and other risks like heightened tensions in the Middle East and the danger from climate change. The experts are pegging international growth at an average of 3.3% this year, slightly below what they forecast late last year, with 2021 growth limited to 3.4%. I'm Jan Johnson.
Climate issues are set to be one of the main talking points at the World Economic Forum in the Swiss ski resort of Davos this week. But a survey of CEOs shows that they are not even ranked among the top 10 threats to business growth. I'm Mike Moss.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. The International Monetary Fund is predicting the world economy will strengthen in 2020. However, growth is expected at a slightly weaker pace than previously anticipated. The IMF is citing threats related to trade, as well as tensions in the Mideast. The forecast now is for global growth to accelerate this year to 3.3%. That's up from 2.9% in 2019. Boeing is close to securing a $10 billion loan. This would boost the plane maker's finances in the midst of the 737 MAX jetliner crisis. The financing could still be increased if demand from investors exceeds the target size. We are told commitments are due by the end of this week. The embattled steel giant ThyssenKrupp has narrowed the list of bidders for its elevator unit. We are told the Asian private equity firm Hill House Capital and the Brazilian-American investment firm 3G Capital are no longer in the running. 3 groups of private equity bidders do remain in the process. This unit is expected to fetch more than $17 billion. French President Emmanuel Macron and President Trump of the U.S. have agreed to a truce in their dispute over digital taxes. It means neither side will impose punitive tariffs this year. Macron said in a tweet, "We will work together on a good agreement to avoid tariff escalation." Deloitte's annual readiness report shows that corporate executives are increasingly concerned about environmental issues and see them as threats to their business operations. The report is based on a survey of more than 2,000 global managers and public sector leaders. American markets are closed in observance of the MLK Day. In the European session, stocks were mixed. Oil is higher following reports of disruptions in Libya and Iraq. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week from Bloomberg Radio.
Hello, I'm Carol Masser.
And I'm Jason Kelly. Plenty ahead for you in this hour of the weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week, including a look at Bumble, the second most popular dating app designed to appeal to women, a reaction in some ways to Tinder by one of the co-founders.
Also, we've got a conversation with Phil Murphy. He's the governor of the state of New Jersey. We talked about some of the timely issues, including trade and the impact that could have on the state. But he had just given his state of the state, Jason. So we got into what they're doing to create jobs. We talked about taxation. He's still behind the millionaire's tax. So a lot in terms of that conversation.
Well, and over in New Jersey, maybe there are a lot of greenhouses. Apparently, it's not so easy, even if you're super rich, to own one. That's in our Pursuit section. But first, I got a chance to catch up with Steve Schwartzman. He is, of course, the co-founder, the chairman, and the CEO of the Blackstone Group, a confidant of President Trump and of President Xi. He played a little bit of a shuttle diplomacy role throughout these long trade negotiations. He was in the White House for the signing. Here's what he had to say.
This got to be a deal basically because it's been going on for 3 years since we really started this. It was 2 days before Davos 3 years ago. So we've had a lot of near misses, a little bit of success, and now a lot of success. And I think it takes a while for each country to figure out what it really wants to get out of a trade agreement, what it wants to get out of the compliance, the opening of its markets. And for China, you have to remember that the U.S. and China, other than the World Trade Organization deal in 2001, fundamentally hasn't had a trade agreement since the 1940s. So what's been achieved is very, very significant. The two countries want to work together. That's a huge change. The tariffs are starting to be reversed. There are major purchases of things, of not just agriculture, but other things. Intellectual property is been reversed separately. The conversations in December regarding fentanyl, which is killing over 50,000 Americans a year. China has really made huge strides to cut off the supply of fentanyl. Right. And so what we're seeing are countries that are competitive, but also have this huge relationship trade-wise. Together, these two countries, hard to believe, the way depending upon how you calculate it, have between 35 and 40% of the world's economy just in two countries. Right. So the idea of decoupling and everybody going their own way on virtually everything is impractical, and it's also not good for the world economy. Right. So what the two countries have done now is figure out where they can start the dialogue, how they can implement it, and it's a very positive feeling. This wasn't a grudging type of deal that's been entered into.
All right, so Steve, obviously you've been playing a bit of a role of a statesman going back and forth between these two leaders that you know very well. At the end of the day, you're a businessman, you're an investor. What does this do for you as a businessman, as an investor sitting at Blackstone? Does it amplify, does it accelerate investments that you may be making around the world and specifically in China?
Well, what it does is it provides a baseline of a better world economy. And I think you're seeing in the markets over the last sort of whatever you want to measure, the last year, certainly the last few months, as this agreement's come together. It's not the only reason for strong markets, but it's the business community globally telling you that things are better now in terms of prospects than they were before this agreement was entered into.
And so when you think about phase two, and we'll see when that gets started, what's the most important thing for you to see as an investor and a business person?
Well, I think phase two will cover a number of other things, which are important. things that have not been resolved. There's some issues, regarding cyber and non-tariff trade restrictions, and also tariffs themselves have not been fully negotiated out in terms of where you go when these things all unwind, assuming you have a successful phase 2, and there are other issues as well. And so what's important as a business person is to know that there's positive momentum. There are countries who realize that even though they may be rivals in certain areas, that in the commercial area, as much cooperation on as fair a basis as you can do is better than countries just sort of breaking apart, which is deleterious for world trade and for business.
And that's my conversation with Steve Schwarzman there on the White House lawn. Interesting, of course, he is a friend and confidant of the president. He's obviously very pro this deal. He worked on it, but interesting to see what the implications are for his day job, running the world's biggest alternative investment manager.
I got to say, it was just interesting to see who was all in that room in the White House as that trade deal was signed. A very telling story. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, we're going to get into the second most popular dating app in the United States. It's supposed to offer women a better option, but we asked the question our Claire Sudduth does it?
Right, we're talking about Bumble. It's a complicated story. Dating, it's complicated. Dating apps, maybe even more so. This is Bloomberg.
Shaw, a senior project engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city in the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that so in 10 years we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water? NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Tech companies, including Facebook and Twitter, may be contributing to our economic growth, but it's hard to know by how much.
If something is free, then how do you measure its value?
Chris Condon wrote the story for Bloomberg News.
So if something is given away, whether it's Facebook or GPS map services, if the price is zero, then it has no impact whatsoever on our measures of gross domestic product.
Which led a group of economists to pose this question to determine a value for all of the technology that we're getting for free.
Would you give up Facebook for a month for $100? And they calculate how many said yes and no, and then they asked a different subgroup, would you give it up for $50?
Eventually they got their answer, which was $42.17, helping them get a better estimate on gross domestic product. Condon says it is likely we will see a lot more research on the topic. I'm Charlie Pellett, Bloomberg Radio.
Rich is just a...
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Hello, I'm your captain for today's Virgin Atlantic flight. Please drop everything and pay close attention to the following announcement. The sail is now on. Our crew are ready to take your bags and stresses away. The cocktails are ready to serve, the movies are loaded, and we're all set for takeoff to the Caribbean. So, take your seat in our award-winning economy class. We're ready to go when you are.
The Virgin Atlantic sail.
Fly amazing for less. For more details, visit virginatlantic.com.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
It is the second most popular dating app in the U.S. It's supposed to offer women a better option, but does it?
We're talking about Bumble. It's the subject of a feature in the magazine this week. Claire Sudduth wrote it, and it is quite a tale. She's here with us in New York City. All right, where to begin? I guess let's begin with, what is Bumble?
Bumble is a dating app. It is also a networking app. They have like a platonic version and a professional networking version. But essentially, you swipe right or left if you like people. And if you do, you go on a date. You can message them. But its defining feature that it was founded with is that only women can message men first. So if you swipe right on a man and he swipes on you, the woman, it's on her to message him. Supposedly, this is empowering. This allows women to guide the conversation. But the issue is there's not really any evidence that it actually is empowering or that it's doing what it claims, which is supposed to be flipping the script, giving women more power in relationships.
Right, and I feel like she's really on a mission to kind of get rid of harassment of women on a dating website and maybe more broadly, like on social media, right? There's a mission.
And the she we are talking about is Whitney Wolfe Herd. She came from Tinder, which is an important sort of historical note, right?
She's a co-founder, right?
Tell us about her.
So Bumble has an amazing origin story, which is it's founded by this woman named Whitney Wolfe Herd, who, when she was 23, she, along with some other people, co-founded Tinder. She was its first vice president of marketing. She sort of engineered Tinder's initial explosive app, especially on college campuses. She sued Tinder for sexual harassment in 2014. There was an undisclosed settlement, no admission of wrongdoing. But she received a lot of harassment online during all of this. People calling her names, death threats, etc. So when she founded Bumble, she really wanted to combat harassment online and just make a place on the internet that's safer for women.
And is she? That's really the big question I feel like you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And you look at the culture of the company, because there's been concerns about that, and whether or not she's making a difference on social media.
Yeah, and this story, I will say, took me a long time to report, because initially when someone tells you, we're making the internet safer for women, we have all of these policies in place, you think, okay,
here's the data.
That sounds great. They've banned hate speech. Women have to message men first, so it's harder for men to, in theory anyway, harass women, at least out of the blue. Then the more that I looked into it and I would ask for proof, I couldn't actually get them to provide me with any explanation for how this worked. Eventually, at one point, they did tell me their abuse rate, which is the number of people who are kicked off the app for violating these hate speech and harassment rules, is 7 to 8%, but it's been the same throughout the entire time. So they've instituted these policies, and not much is really changing.
And there's no real benchmark for that, right? Because we don't know what that rate is at other dating sites.
Right, exactly. And, I talked to a couple dating sites off the record, and they said, well, we don't know how you can compare us because we all have different terms of service agreements and different user bases and that sort of thing, which was their explanation.
Only complicates it.
But the reason why I started asking these questions is because former employees were telling me, well, Bumble doesn't actually check to see if anything that it does makes much of a difference. And once I heard that from many people, I started to sort of rethink, okay, so what does it mean? One of the things that Bumble does is it bans shirtless selfies.
Right.
So their explanation for why they ban shirtless selfies is that 86% of the accounts that are reported for bad behavior have these shirtless selfies in them. So they banned them, but you could just upload a different picture. There's no real, I mean, how does that mean women are safer just because you can't take your shirt off in a photo anymore? So they don't have any explanation for how this actually benefits anyone.
I want to go back to the culture of the company because it in part rests, and part of the narrative rests on where the company sits sort of organizationally. It's part of a larger company now. And in fact, Whitney Wolfe Herd has essentially ascended to an even higher position. Tell us about the company and the parent company.
Yeah, so if you've heard anything about Bumble, you might know its origin story, but it actually from the very beginning has been part of a larger company, originally called Badoo. In June, there's a structure change, and now it's called Magic Lab. But Badoo is a London-based dating app that runs primarily, I think, in Europe and Latin America. Bumble was started sort of after the fact and has always been built by Badoo engineers in London and then marketed and designed by Wolfe Herd and her team of women in Austin. So it's this weird mix of, it's a scrappy startup, but it's also not, and
right.
Yeah.
And Badoo was run by a Russian billionaire.
Right.
There's so many fun facets.
Yeah, and Badoo has its own culture problems. There was a great Forbes article a few months ago about allegations of sexual harassment over there and just the lack of women's ability to advance the workplace at Badoo. And yet here is Bumble, this beacon of equality.
Claire, when you set out to do this story, I mean, part of it sounds like you wanted to know a little bit more about this person and the identity behind Bumble. I mean, tell us about your mission, kind of what you hope to get out of it, and what do you think you ultimately got out of it?
Yeah, I mean, so I came to this story because I had read all of the great press about Bumble, and I thought, wow, they are doing so many great things, and let's take a look at this company, because if we can figure out what Bumble is doing, we can figure out, what other companies should be doing or how they should be changing their mission. But the more that I looked into it, the more I realized these problems are really complex. I talked to this woman who is an expert on trying to eradicate hate speech, and she talked about working with Facebook, and there were specific terms that Facebook wanted to make sure that people couldn't say, derogatory. But also some of those same terms people throw around at each other in a sort of endearing kind of way.
Right.
And so if you decide to scrub that word entirely from Facebook, you are capturing like 80% of the posts that use it in sort of a nice way.
Right.
Nice, but whatever.
Right.
So
non-threatening,
jokey kind of way, friend to friend. And so what she was saying is that, to do this is much harder than just banning something. And when I heard that, I thought, okay, well, mostly what Bumble does is ban things. They don't have any explanation for how that actually works or how that's beneficial. So I'm not sure that they're really solving anything.
That's Claire Sadeth, who did the story on Bumble, and you can find that story online and also on the Bloomberg terminal. Interesting, this woman, young, she was a co-founder of Tinder, and here she is behind Bumble. But it's interesting about a company that sets out with a specific mission, and Claire really digs into, does it live up to that mission, and does it create what it promised?
Well, and this is a story that's ultimately about the culture of the company, sort of the culture of the world we're living in right now as well, even lawmaking to some extent, and how corporate influence can play a role there. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, we take a look at the business environment of the great state of New Jersey, your home state, Carol, with Governor Phil Murphy.
It is great. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management.
Management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
You can't be the only one who's...
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
The Norwegian sale is now on. Fly to Europe from £29.90, North America from £134.90, or South America from £189.90. And with low fares to over 150 other destinations, the world has never been closer. Start your journey at Norwegian.com. All fares are one way from London Gatwick. Baggage fees apply. Travel periods vary by route. Visit our website for more details. Sale ends Monday.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
10 years ago, the book The New Jim Crow helped ignite a movement against mass incarceration. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with the author, Michelle Alexander.
Millions of people have been relegated to a permanent second-class status. It wasn't a message people were eager to hear, but I think it is today easier to see.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
MLK Day today. White House Counselor Kellyanne Conway was asked how the president is marking the day.
The president is preparing for Davos and agrees with many of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King stood for and agreed with for many years, including unity and equality. And he's not the one trying to tear the country apart through an impeachment process and a lack of substance that really is very shameful at this point.
Trump will be in Davos tomorrow, just as the opening arguments begin in his Senate impeachment trial. His legal defense team submitted briefs today, arguing the Senate should reject the articles of impeachment and acquit the president immediately. No motive known yet after a gunman opened fire on a line of people waiting to get into a Kansas City bar last night. The gunman was shot and killed by an armed guard at the club. 15 were hurt, 3 critically. I'm Mike Moss.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. The International Monetary Fund is predicting the global economy will strengthen in 2020. However, growth is expected to be at a slightly weaker pace than previously anticipated. Geeta Gopinath is the chief economist at the International Monetary Fund. She told us one reason for better growth this year, more than in 2020, is the Phase 1 trade deal between the U.S. and China.
We welcome this news, but we also press for more on this front. I mean, there has to be a more comprehensive deal. It has to be durable and long-lasting. Now, if these tensions return, that again will then undo all of the improvement in policy uncertainty that we've seen recently.
The IMF is forecasting global growth will accelerate this year to 3.3%. That would be up from 2.9% in 2019. Boeing is close to securing a $10 billion loan. It would boost the plane maker's finances in the midst of the 737 MAX jetliner crisis. The financing could still be increased if demand from investors exceeds the target size. We are told commitments are due by the end of this week. The embattled steel giant ThyssenKrupp has narrowed the list of bidders for its elevator unit. We are told the private equity firm Hill House Capital and the Brazilian-American investment firm 3G Capital are no longer in the running. 3 groups of private equity bidders do remain in the process. This unit is expected to fetch more than $17 billion. French President Emmanuel Macron and President Trump of the U.S. agreed to a truce in their dispute over digital taxes. In a tweet, Macron said, "We will work together on a good agreement to avoid tariff escalation." American markets are closed in observance of the MLK Day. Crude oil moved higher following reports of supply disruptions in both Libya and Iraq. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
So New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, he's heading into his 3rd year. He did give a state of the state. I caught up with him, talked about a variety of things that are going on at the state, but we kicked things off with talking about that U.S.-China trade deal. Here's what the governor had to say.
Trade impacts us significantly. We have one of the biggest ports in the United States. And so for that reason alone, never mind our other goods and services that are made in New Jersey, I believe at its core, there are legitimate issues with China, period. And that's not to me in question. What has been in question is how we've gone about that. And I have not supported the approach to this. I would have signed on the dotted line a lot of what was negotiated, assuming labor and consumers were protected. I would have signed what the Obama administration had worked on. But having said all that, lowering the trade temperature, as you suggest, taking another distraction off the table, I think is a good thing. I'm not qualified to tell you that this is a good trade deal. Again, I look at any deal through the eyes of consumers and labor. But putting aside the specifics, anything that can lower the temperature, I think is good.
Governor, talk to us about your kind of what I see as like 2 objectives with this Jobs New Jersey plan, an initiative. It is about helping employers access talent. It's also about helping residents that are in New Jersey develop the skills. I hear this across the country that everyone is working on these initiatives. What specifically are you going to do to help New Jersey residents have the skills that they need for the jobs that are in demand?
Yeah, you've got it exactly right, first of all. So the notion here is this is what employers need for the economy of tomorrow. These are the employees that we're producing with the skills they've got. How can we, as seamlessly as possible, shrink the gap and make it line up as best we can? You're right, lots of places are doing this, but no place starts where we start. number one public education system in America, highest concentration of scientists and engineers per square mile in the entire world, a diversity unlike any other American state. We just got ranked to be the smartest state in the nation. We start in a very good place. But again, getting that match to work, I can't tell you how many CEOs, board chairs I've sat with who say, listen, we love it. My first question is, where am I going to get the workforce for tomorrow? And just at this, on the other side of the coin, with recent graduates saying, listen, I feel really good about my education, but I want to make sure the skills I've got will get me the job that I want. And so our job is to make that match as best we can.
I'm understanding, of course, you guys are gradually raising the minimum wage. Small businesses are telling us that is killing them. How do you respond to that? And we know small business is always the backbone of really our nation's economy.
Yeah, by the way, our administration, for the first time, Carol, has a small business unit in our Economic Development Authority. That's never happened before. I think 60% of the employment in our state is technically by small businesses. Right. As it relates to minimum wage, one way we're doing this is we're doing it gradually. It's a 5-year glide path to $15 an hour. And that's explicitly because of the small business community. Secondly, depending on how small you are, there are carve-outs and the glide path is even longer. I can't justify having a 2-income household earning below the poverty line in New Jersey. It's unacceptable. So we had no choice but to go from $8 and something. We're now at $11, and in several years from now, we'll get to $15. It's the right thing to do. Right. I think we're doing it in a responsible way, particularly with our small businesses, and I hope we can have one of those 1 + 1 = 3 outcomes.
At the other end of the spectrum, the millionaire's tax. Got to ask you about it. You keep pushing for this millionaire's tax. It was in your State of the State. Your fellow Democrats in New Jersey seem to say it's a dead issue. Why do you keep pushing? What chance is there for success here?
Yeah, I'd say I just challenge a little bit the basis of the question. My fellow Democrats, a millionaire's tax actually in New Jersey polls in the 70s, including a wild majority of Democrats and a majority of Republicans, believe it or not. Why do we want to do it? Because it's the right thing to do. And we're not begrudging folks who have done well. There are 22,000 and something folks in this state out of 9 million who are in this category. Bless them for their success. We take our hat off to them. We want more of them. That's not the point. It's not us versus them. We want them to pay a little bit more. And the reason we want this is 2 reasons. Number one, we'll take the proceeds and we'll put it directly into the middle class. Direct middle class property tax relief and K through 12 education funding. I inherited a state where the middle class had been ravaged. We're on a 2-year run now where we are making historic investments. This will allow us to accelerate that. And in particular, property tax is the big tax burden in this state above all else.
And that's Phil Murphy, governor of the state of New Jersey, coming off of his State of the State address, talking about your home state, Carol Massar.
Right, my great home state of New Jersey. So we did talk about a lot of stuff. Trade, because it was in the news, wanted to see what the impact was on the state, but also about his mission for the millionaire's tax and so much more. So fun to check in with him.
He's an interesting politician, to be sure. You're listening to Bloomberg BizWeek. Coming up, greenhouses. They're not just for the green thumbs anymore, but you got to have a lot of green to get one in your backyard.
I saw what you did there. Yeah. Very nice. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all. Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Cutting for the net, scores on the goal line. Marshawn scores.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home.
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
When you want answers that mean something,
explain politically how important the process is or is not to the White House.
You have to ask questions that mean something.
Are they much more focused on the economy?
Balance of Power with David Weston.
There was almost a consensus this thing's not working out for the Democrats. Do you think that's harsh?
Weekdays at noon Eastern.
Some people are not quite comfortable with the way the president presents himself.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm
Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C's change.
Business is like a puzzle.
Can you make a call given this swirl of data?
Get all the pieces.
They're getting mixed signals from governments.
He's failed to gain traction.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio. A reminder, Michael Bloomberg, a Democratic presidential candidate, is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, parent of Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update. Now the news.
America is marking MLK Day today. White House Counselor Kellyanne Conway was asked how the president is marking the day.
The president is preparing for Davos and agrees with many of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King stood for and agreed with for many years, including unity and equality. And he's not the one trying to tear the country apart through an impeachment process and a lack of substance that really is very shameful at this point.
Trump will be in Davos tomorrow just as the opening arguments begin in his Senate impeachment trial. His legal defense team submitted briefs today arguing the Senate should reject the articles of impeachment and acquit the president immediately. No motive known yet after a gunman opened fire on a line of people waiting to get into a Kansas City bar last night. The gunman was shot and killed by an armed guard at the club. 15 were hurt, 3 critically. I'm Mike Moss.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Jason Kelly from Bloomberg Radio.
Every new watch is like a new piece of art.
The Italian wines as a whole really speak to that quintessential need.
It is the most powerful car made in the U.S., period.
You get the beautiful interior, the iconic design.
It's very chic and posh.
Even if you pay for it, it's something that money can't get.
The opener pursuits this week, it's about building your own greenhouse. I know, Jason Kelly, you've been thinking about this.
I've been thinking so much about it, but what we debated our house is greenhouse conservatory. Greenhouse conservatory.
What to do?
What to do. James Tarmy is here with us in New York City. Didn't see this one coming, and yet it's a fascinating tale.
Yeah.
So this is how people are spending their money.
It turns out that